The council hall of the Elytra Concord shimmered above a dying blue star, a monument to 1,000 species that called themselves civilized. Inside, diplomats and generals gathered under banners stitched with the emblems of empires older than Earth itself. Voices overlapped in a dozen languages, their tones sharp with politics and pride. The air vibrated with ozone and authority. Humanity's delegation, new, untested, and watched with amusement, entered the chamber with calm steps that drew curious eyes. Ambassador Vance was not remarkable in appearance. He wore the plain charcoal suit of the United Terran Coalition, a symbol of restraint rather than opulence. He carried no ornament, no weapon, not even a datapad. He needed none. When he approached the speaking dais, the crowd quieted out of curiosity rather than respect. Humanity had no weight here, not yet. The debate centered on an unremarkable mining system on the edge of Elythran-controlled space. To humanity, it was a colony called Cinder Reach, a struggling settlement of 8,000 souls. To the Elythrans, it was a resource-rich asteroid cluster they had claimed centuries ago but never used. What began as discussion turned to accusation. Vance's voice was even, measured. The settlers are civilians. They mine, they trade, they do not provoke. The Concord's charter forbids aggression against non-combatants. We request recognition of their right to exist. Laughter rippled through the Elythran delegation, soft, derisive, practiced. Their general, Sarn Vos, rose from his throne-like chair, his armor catching the light like molten bronze. He was massive, predatory, the embodiment of dominance in physical form. His voice rolled like thunder through translation fields. Human, you misunderstand the law. The weak do not have rights. They have permission. And permission can be revoked. The hall stirred. Several species exchanged uneasy glances. Others smirked behind translucent masks. Vance did not flinch. Then you mistake civility for weakness, he replied, tone cold as steel. We came here in peace, not submission. Vos descended the dais, towering over the human. You stand among the architects of galaxies and demand equality? His claws clicked against the marble floor. You are children who found fire and think yourselves gods. Vance met his gaze without blinking. Children grow up, General. The insult struck harder than any weapon. Vos's nostrils flared. In one smooth, contemptuous motion, he drove a taloned foot forward, connecting with Vance's face. The sound was wet, final. The diplomat fell back, blood streaking the pristine floor. Gasps echoed. Security did not move. No one intervened. For 3 heartbeats, the universe held its breath. The human aides froze. Then, silently, they lifted their fallen ambassador, their faces impassive masks. One of them pressed a cloth to his wound. Another picked up the blood-smeared earth insignia from the ground. Not a word was spoken. They walked out of the chamber, step by synchronized step, leaving red footprints that stained the white floor. No threats. No pleas. No declaration. Only the echo of their departure. Vos turned back to the council, triumphant. Let that be a lesson, he said, voice carrying to every corner. This is what happens when primitives forget their place. Applause came from a handful of lesser species, nervous and eager to align with power. Others sat silent, sensing the gravity of what had just unfolded but too cowardly to intervene. News feeds captured the moment, transmitting it across 1,000 worlds. Billions watched the replay, frame by frame, the blow, the fall, the silent exit. To many it was a spectacle. To humans, it was something else entirely. Across Earth and its colonies, people watched without speaking. No outrage, no chaos. Just stillness. In that stillness, something ancient stirred, an instinct older than diplomacy. It moved through cities and stations like a shadow. Within the council chamber, a technician whispered to a colleague. They didn't even retaliate. The other replied, almost uneasily. Maybe they don't dare. But one elder, a being who had witnessed the fall of empires, leaned forward and murmured, No. They're remembering. The recording of that moment would later be known by a single phrase in galactic history texts, the quiet exit. Few understood then that it was not the end of a meeting, it was the beginning of a reckoning. And somewhere, light years away, humanity went home. The broadcasts of the assault reached Earth before dawn. Every major network played it once, then stopped without commentary. There were no debates, no fiery speeches. The United Terran Coalition issued a single statement. Incident acknowledged. Response under deliberation. The world understood what that meant. The following morning, production metrics across all human systems surged. Mining guilds increased or extraction by 40%. Civilian shipyards quietly suspended transport schedules and began recalibrating for military configurations. There were no parades, no anthems, only the hum of machinery and the rhythmic pulse of industry returning to an older purpose. Workers didn't ask questions, they simply stayed late. In orbit above Mars, the Helios yards reactivated their classified sequence, Project Iron Veil. Automated drones began reconstructing warframes mothballed since the era of the solar conflicts. The commanders who once trained under that doctrine returned from retirement. No one had to call them. They already knew what the silence meant. Across Luna's defense academies, simulations once restricted to theoretical hostility against Concord fleets were unlocked. Cadets noticed the change but said nothing. Humanity did not advertise its fury. It prepared it in quiet rooms, under artificial light, with hands that did not tremble. The United Terran Coalition convened behind closed doors. The session lasted 9 hours. Every major power attended, from the orbital colonies of Titan to the oceanic habitats of Pacifica. When it ended, the resolution passed unanimously. Strategic Contingency Theta, Authorization of Defensive Mobilization. It was the first unanimous vote in human interplanetary history. While politicians of other species mocked the phrase defensive mobilization, human engineers interpreted it literally, make the species untouchable. Within weeks, the first quantum communication blackout enveloped Earth's network grid. External observers could no longer intercept data or transmissions. To outsiders, humanity vanished from the interstellar web. To insiders, production orders quadrupled. Scientists at the Kepler Research Array unveiled experimental propulsion systems previously deemed too unstable for military use. Now stability was irrelevant, results were required. Quantum physicists found themselves working alongside tacticians, merging mathematics with strategy. The unspoken belief was simple: the next war would not be fought for territory, it would be fought for dignity. In cities across the colonies, ordinary citizens watched the footage again. They did not riot. They joined queues at recruitment centers that extended for blocks. Soldiers who had never seen combat trained alongside scientists, miners, and engineers. Every participant understood that this was not revenge. It was correction. The media attempted to interpret humanity's collective calm, but every analysis failed. When asked what motivated them, an elderly worker in the new Jakarta shipyard said simply, "He kicked one of us." That sentence spread through networks faster than propaganda. It became the unifying phrase of a species once fractured by politics and borders. Trade routes with Concord species were severed overnight. The Earth Fleet, previously a ceremonial force, was restructured into the Terran Strategic Command. The first directive issued read, "No external communication without necessity. No apology without justice." The second directive was never made public. Intelligence divisions monitored alien chatter. Elithran analysts dismissed human silence as weakness. They speculated that Earth lacked the resources for open warfare, that humanity would submit to diplomatic pressure. None realized that their observation networks were already compromised. Human cyber units infiltrated Concord systems through unprotected relay stations, mapping fleet deployments under the guise of passive observation. Every intercepted signal became another thread in a vast, invisible net. Factories once dedicated to agricultural machinery were repurposed to manufacture kinetic projectiles and armored plating. Civilian AI systems reprogrammed themselves to optimize production output. There were no posters, no patriotic slogans, just orders executed with clinical precision. The human government never declared war. It did not need to. The shift in logistics, energy consumption, and ship movement spoke louder than words. Across the Sol system, night skies filled with the faint glow of new shipyards igniting. Entire asteroid belts were hollowed out to house fleets unseen by alien reconnaissance. When foreign diplomats inquired about the progress of peace talks, Earth's response was identical to every inquiry. Under review. Behind that phrase lay the coordinated efforts of billions preparing for inevitability. By the time alien intelligence realized the scale of mobilization, it was too late. Convoys vanished from known routes. Communication probes went silent. Humanity's outward stillness was the camouflage of a predator. In that silence, under the hum of engines and the pulse of industry, the species that once begged for a seat in the Council prepared to show the galaxy why peace had always been their preferred choice, because their alternative was extinction for anyone who forgot their place. 3 months passed, and the Concord mistook quiet for defeat. Elithran fleets patrolled the border systems with arrogance reborn, broadcasting their superiority across the void. Their admirals laughed at human inactivity, claiming the incident had broken Earth's will. They did not notice the sudden absence of Terran freighters or the unregistered signals drifting at the edge of their sensor range. They saw emptiness and believed it was safety. Then, in one night, their commerce routes ceased to exist. 42 supply convoys traveling between Elithra Prime and its frontier colonies vanished without distress calls. Patrol ships found only drifting debris fields, magnetic echoes, and molecular residue that didn't match any known weapon's signature. Entire fleets reduced to silence, their data logs wiped clean. Panic rippled through command networks. Elithran intelligence reported massive energy distortions consistent with quantum resonance, but no source could be pinpointed. At the same hour, across hundreds of worlds, communication screens flickered with static, then displayed a message in plain Terran standard. This is acknowledgement. No insignia, no sound, no face, only that phrase, repeated once, then gone. The Council dismissed it as human theatrics, but the timing was too exact, too deliberate. The Concord's analysts compared sensor data from every attack site and discovered a chilling pattern. The strikes occurred simultaneously, across multiple light years, with precision down to the second. No species had ever achieved that level of coordination. In the following days, the Elithran military attempted counter-scout operations. None returned. Their surveillance satellites captured fleeting images, brief flashes of light, elongated distortions that disappeared before instruments could focus. Some described the phenomenon as ghost fleets, others as dimensional folds. What no one could deny was that the pattern of destruction moved closer to Elithran borders, each attack more surgical than the last. When Concord strategists analyzed the damage, they realized humanity wasn't targeting soldiers. They were dismantling the foundation of Elithran logistics, fuel depots, communications hubs, repair docks, crippling the ability to sustain war before the war began. Each strike was exact, emotionless, and devastatingly efficient. No glory, no case, no survivors. A captured data fragment from a destroyed outpost revealed the final seconds of an encounter. The last transmission recorded an approaching signal, a single Terran warship, sleek and unmarked, emerging from a rift of distorted space. Its hull bore no lights, no symbols, only darkness that seemed to drink the stars around it. Then, without visible weapon discharge, the outpost systems overloaded and went black. The data ended mid-scream. The Elithran Council demanded an emergency meeting. General Sarn Voss, once triumphant, now faced his peers with uncertainty in his eyes. His empire was losing resources faster than it could account for them. Fleets dispatched to intercept the attackers found nothing but cold vacuum and their own echoes. When a junior officer suggested negotiating with the humans, Voss silenced him with a glare. They wouldn't come to talk, he muttered, though even he didn't sound convinced. Across the galactic network, lesser species began withdrawing their trade pacts with Elithra, quietly severing alliances. They feared proximity more than disloyalty. Rumors spread that human fleets could strike from any point in space, that their weapons ignored shields and matter alike. Some whispered that humans had mastered entropy itself. Fear reshaped politics faster than war could. The media called it the vanishing month. No human official made a statement. No fleet was ever seen. Yet across the stars, alien worlds adjusted to a new unspoken reality. Earth had chosen to respond. The Concorde began reinforcing borders, deploying every available defense system, yet no enemy appeared. The threat was everywhere and nowhere, deliberate and unseen. The few recordings that survived those weeks shared one common moment: a faint transmission heard through deep band radio, a human voice distorted by static saying, "We warned you once." After that, silence. The Concorde finally grasped the scale of their mistake. They had humiliated a species that viewed patience as a weapon. The message had been clear from the beginning. Humanity did not seek vengeance through slaughter or proclamation. It demonstrated consequence through precision. The galaxy, for the first time, began to fear the quiet more than the roar. The first open engagement began without a declaration. Elithran border fleets positioned themselves near the Taylor Expanse, expecting another invisible strike. Instead, they faced the physical manifestation of Earth's silence. Human ships arrived through folded space, sleek, angular, and colorless, their surfaces absorbing light instead of reflecting it. The first wave numbered less than 50, yet they carried the presence of 1,000. Within minutes, the Elithran command network collapsed under targeted disruption. Communication grids failed, navigation arrays went blind, and entire task forces drifted disoriented in orbit before being methodically dismantled. The humans did not broadcast demands, only brief coded pulses to confirm completion of each strike. The Concorde declared full-scale mobilization. Thousands of ships from allied races rallied to the Elithran defense, each vowing vengeance for the humiliation of one of their own. They expected a prolonged conflict, a contest of strength. Instead, the war became an autopsy. Every engagement ended the same: no drawn-out battles, no exchanges of fire. Human fleets appeared, executed, and vanished. Every strike displayed mathematical precision, disabling command vessels first, vaporizing ammunition depots second, and finally erasing relay satellites to ensure no record remained. Each encounter lasted less than 10 minutes. General Sarnvas, reinstated to command in desperation, watched his empire unravel system by system. His ships fought bravely, but bravery was irrelevant. Their weapons could not lock onto targets that existed in multiple vectors simultaneously. Elithran scientists called it spatial phase warfare, a theoretical impossibility until humanity demonstrated it as fact. The general's advisors urged surrender. He ordered them silent. Pride was all he had left, though even pride began to rot under the weight of defeat. What terrified the Concorde most was the restraint. Humanity did not attack civilian worlds or population centers. They dismantled power grids, disrupted economies, and crippled supply lines without unnecessary casualties. Every conquest was accompanied by medical relief for survivors, food shipments, and encoded messages. "You are not our enemy. You follow one." The moral calculus defied comprehension. Humanity's vengeance was controlled, ethical, and absolute. They fought not out of rage but obligation, to demonstrate consequence without excess. That restraint broke the morale of entire fleets more effectively than slaughter ever could. Reports spread of soldiers abandoning their posts, surrendering to automated drones that offered water and silence instead of violence. Captured officers were treated, interrogated briefly, then released with a single phrase burned into their data cores: "Return home." Tell them. Those who returned spoke of humans who fought like machines and healed like saints. The contradiction unnerved the galaxy. As the war spread, Concorde cohesion fractured. Lesser species began defecting, offering intelligence in exchange for leniency. Humanity accepted, never promising reward, only ending hostilities once information proved true. Within weeks, Elithran supply maps, encryption keys, and defense schematics became obsolete under constant human adaptation. Every countermeasure invented was already countered. The speed of learning bordered on supernatural. For a civilization once dismissed as primitive, Earth now operated like a hive mind forged from necessity and memory. The final attempt at unity came when the Concord assembled a coalition fleet of over 3,000 warships near the Nerix line. They called it Operation Continuance, a last stand to preserve pride. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it ended, one human vessel transmitted a closing statement on open frequency. Aggression neutralized. War concluded upon acknowledgement. Then the fleet dissolved into the void, leaving only silence and debris. General Voss survived, stranded aboard his flagship among ruins. For the first time, he understood the depth of his error. Humanity had not waged war for dominance. They had executed justice with precision no empire could emulate. They had turned technology, psychology, and ethics into synchronized weapons. The universe, watching through fragmented transmissions, realized the truth too late. Humanity's capacity for peace was terrifying precisely because it chose restraint when it no longer needed to. The quiet species had spoken, and every star now listened in fearful reverence. The war ended not with fire but with surrender. Elithor Prime, once the heart of arrogance, lay surrounded by Terran fleets that made no demands. The planetary shields fell without bombardment. Humanity's ships simply waited until the generators exhausted themselves. No ultimatums were issued, no speeches delivered. When the Elithran Council opened communication, the human representative was not a general or politician but an AI interface transmitting from orbit. Its voice carried no tone, only authority. The assault on Terran sovereignty has been addressed. Submit your leadership for judgment. There was no negotiation. The council obeyed. Sarn Voss was taken without resistance. The humans transported him aboard a containment vessel constructed specifically for him, its walls lined with fields designed to suppress any biological aggression. He expected interrogation, torture, or spectacle. Instead, he was met with silence. The AI judge, neutral and cold, presented the charges: unprovoked assault, violation of interspecies accords, and instigation of hostile engagement resulting in catastrophic conflict. Voss demanded to face a human, to see the species he had underestimated. The machine replied, "You already have." The trial was transmitted across the Galactic network. Billions watched as humanity delivered its verdict with surgical precision. Evidence presented was irrefutable: recordings, diplomatic logs, testimonies from survivors of Elithran atrocities committed during the retaliations. The prosecution never raised its voice. The facts were enough. Voss's defense collapsed under the weight of his own pride. When asked if he regretted his actions, he answered with defiance, "Humans were beneath us." The AI paused, as if calculating morality itself, then delivered the sentence: "Exile. Permanent isolation on the desolate moon of Viral 9. You will live to witness what your arrogance created. You will have access to every broadcast, every record, every treaty signed in the aftermath of your failure. You will remember until your body fails." The verdict spread faster than any explosion. No death sentence. No revenge. Just consequence, drawn out and deliberate. The galaxy understood. Humanity did not destroy to prove dominance. They educated through suffering. In the months that followed, the Concord dissolved under the pressure of shame and fear. From its ashes, a new order emerged, the Unified Stellar Accord, its charter written primarily by Terran diplomats. Every species retained sovereignty but was bound by a single law: no act of violence within diplomatic council. Ever again. Humanity refused the title of conqueror. They positioned themselves not above others but beside them, yet their influence permeated everything. Trade routes reopened under Terran supervision, peacekeeping fleets enforced neutrality, and reconstruction aid was distributed to former enemies without conditions. The galaxy's perception shifted. Once dismissed as unpredictable primitives, humans were now regarded with reverent caution. Their ethics, forged in war and humility, became the foundation of a new political era. Where others sought control, humanity sought balance. Where others demanded submission, they insisted on understanding. Their power was undeniable, but their restraint became legend. Every race learned the same lesson: Humans did not need to dominate, they only needed to be provoked once. On Earth, there were no celebrations. The victory was treated as an obligation fulfilled, not a triumph. Memorials were built not for the fallen but for the principle defended, dignity. The official statement from the United Terran Coalition consisted of 12 words. Justice delivered. Peace restored. Memory preserved. Humanity returns to its work. Those words were etched into the council chamber walls on every major world. Sarn Vos lived for 12 more years in exile. He spent them watching humanity reshape the stars. He saw alien leaders kneel in apology, saw Terran engineers rebuild cities they once destroyed, and realized too late what true strength was. The transmissions he sent, pleas for conversation, understanding, forgiveness, were archived but never answered. Humanity had moved beyond him, beyond vengeance, beyond the need to be feared. They had become inevitable. When he finally died, the Terran network marked the event with a single entry. Sarn Vos' case concluded. No further commentary. His name became a footnote in history, a reminder of arrogance meeting consequence. The galaxy moved forward under Terran stewardship. Councils no longer echoed with threats but with collaboration. Fleets once built for conquest now escorted relief missions. Humanity stood silent at the center of it all, their legacy not written in blood but in balance. They had been mocked, attacked, and underestimated, yet they answered not with fury but purpose. The final record from the Unified Stellar Accord opened with a single line spoken by a human historian addressing all species. We did not come to rule your stars. We came to remind you what respect costs. And as those words spread through the cosmos, the universe finally understood the truth every human had carried quietly since the day their diplomat fell. Humanity forgives, but it never forgets.